Welcome to Terrorific, the place where it's perpetually spooky season. I'm your host, Brandon O, and this is the first episode of 2025. So happy New Year. I wish you nothing but peace, prosperity, and happiness. Hope your New Year's Eve celebrations were filled with merriment and revelry. I spent mine on my couch watching Jigsaw in order to prepare for this. And then afterwards, my wife and I watched Love Island USA. Palate cleansers are crucial. And also, I just really love Love Island USA. We both do. It's a lot of fun. And season 6, peak reality television. 2024 was an incredibly strong year for horror, highlighted by The Substance receiving 5 Golden Globe nominations, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. So shout out Coralie Fargiat, Demi Moore, and Margaret Qualley. That movie was a wild ride. The social commentary was sharp and just real enjoyable flick overall. And the cinematography was crazy. Like, once Oscar season rolls around, I fully expect this movie to get a nom for cinematography and arguably should be the favorite to win it, in my humble opinion. Some other horror films I enjoyed in 2024, my personal top 5 in no particular order: Smile 2, VHS Beyond, Mad S, Alien Romulus, and The First Omen. I have yet to see other popular ones like Terrifier 3 and Longlegs because I don't go to the movie theaters. I'm a person who needs subtitles, and I like to rewind a lot as well, so movie theaters don't really mesh well with my watching habits. So once those hit streaming, and not like on demand, I'm not trying to pay $20 to rent something for 48 hours. But once they hit regular streaming, then, I'll check them out, and I look forward to it. But 2025 has some exciting releases on the way. We have another Conjuring film coming. We have Saw 11 coming, of course. Final Destination. So a lot of franchises are getting 6th, 7th, 8th, 11th entries, as well as some new original ones as well. So, should be a good year. But in the meantime, we continue to trudge forward through the Saw series in our quest to crown the #1 most diabolical trap of them all. To recap our current standings, the winner from Saw 6, the hydrofluoric acid trap, knocked off the winner from Saw 7, the garage trap, to continue in the competition as it seeks to become the first trap to win 3 consecutive matchups. We'll see how it fares against the next crop of contenders, the traps from the 8th installment in the Saw franchise, Jigsaw. The film was released back in 2017, 7 years after Saw the final chapter. The studio had been looking to reboot the franchise, but they were just waiting for the right idea to come along, and it finally did. They brought new directors on board, the Spierig brothers, Peter and Michael, who were best known for writing and directing the 2014 film Predestination, starring Ethan Hawke and Sarah Snook. And quick sidebar, horror is my favorite genre, but my second favorite would probably be time travel. So if you have not seen Predestination, I highly recommend you check this film out. It is wild, and it's a time travel movie if that wasn't already clear. As of now, the first week of January in 2025, it's streaming on Netflix. My favorite movie of any movie ever created is The Matrix. And there's a scene where Neo goes to visit the Oracle and she's trying to tell him his future. And she says, by the way, don't worry about the vase. And he's like, huh? And turns, he's confused. As he turns, he knocks over the vase and it breaks. And he's like, oh shit, I'm sorry. And she's like, hey, I told you not to worry about it. But what's really going to bake your noodle later on is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything? And that scene has really stuck with me, and especially that bake your noodle portion, because Predestination is a movie that will thoroughly bake your noodle. The existential question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, this movie takes that question and adds like a shit ton of steroids and throws it back at you, and just, man, it's it's wild. I suggest watching it. And if you're a person who partakes in any herbal supplements, that might also enhance your viewing experience a little bit more and really, really bake that noodle. No pun intended. Okay, sidebar over. So Jigsaw was written by Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger. Josh Stolberg had been known for comedies, notably Good Luck Chuck with Dane Cook, and that is a name that I have not thought about in quite a long time. Wow. Jigsaw had a budget of $10 million, and it grossed $104 million at the worldwide box office, which is an ROI of about 1,040%. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds a score of 32% from critics, but 88% from audiences. The critics' consensus reads, quote, Jigsaw definitely won't win many converts to the Saw franchise, but for longtime fans, it should prove a respectably revolting, if rarely scary, diversion. And to add some additional context, that 32% approval rating from critics, that was based on 87 reviews, while the 88% from audiences was based on more than 25,000 reviews. So that might tell you a little bit. But this is the point where we get into the movie more deeply, so consider this your spoiler alert. Now I gotta keep it a buck. I've been trying to keep my opinions on the Saw films themselves to myself because this is not a film review podcast. But in all honesty, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was good, surprisingly good. I was fully expecting it to be just shitty because I hadn't enjoyed a Saw movie since Saw 3. Saw 1 was great, Saw 2, hella mid, Saw 3 was good, 4, 5, 6, and 7 just terrible. Surgeons in Colombia and Brazil should be jealous of how much ass this franchise had been putting out in the streets. It was crazy how bad they were. And so I came into Jigsaw with no expectations whatsoever. If anything, the expectations were in the dirt, negative expectations. It leans more towards mystery thriller. The torture and stuff and the blood and gore, it's still present, but it takes a noticeable backseat. The death scenes are a lot quicker and they don't focus as much on the suffering. And to further illustrate that point, Jigsaw is the only film in the Saw franchise to have never been rated NC-17 by the Motion Picture Association of America. It obtained an R rating without any cuts whatsoever. In the spirit of full transparency, the plot is a little bit illogical, but if you can effectively suspend your disbelief, then it's quite enjoyable. So the plot overview and the twist ending is as follows. 5 people are forced to participate in a deadly series of games inside a barn. Meanwhile, the police are investigating murders that fit the MO of the Jigsaw killer who has been dead for a decade. The main characters are Detective Halloran and Logan, a medical examiner assisting the police in their investigation. And the plot twist is that the audience has been led to believe that the police are investigating at the same time as the barn games are going on, but the barn games actually took place 10 years in the past, and Logan was one of the original people in that game. He has since been recruited and turned by Jigsaw to become his first apprentice even before Amanda, and has since been recreating the games in the current timeline in order to get revenge on Halloran, who has been a dirty cop, and his dirty cop tactics and methods led to the man who killed Logan's wife being released from custody and not charged or prosecuted for the crimes he committed. So now with the bulk of the exposition out of the way, let's get to trapping. By my count, we have 8 traps in Jigsaw, so kicking us off at number 8, we have the wall of buzzsaws. So our 5 barn folks find themselves with a metal bucket on their head and a chain around their neck, and the chain is attached to the wall on the opposite end with buzzsaws embedded in it, and they begin to be pulled towards it. To win the game, they must make a blood sacrifice, even a small one, to turn the red light on top of the bucket to green. Eventually, someone is smart enough to realize that they can just walk up to the saws and cut themselves relatively shallowly in order to win. Yet for some reason, they put their whole arm or their shoulder and backs and shit. Just bro, put your finger up there and you'll be straight. So because of that, because of Jigsaw explicitly saying we only need a small drop of blood. This is a pretty easy trap to win, in my opinion, so it comes in as the least diabolical trap in the Jigsaw film. At number 7, we have the 3 syringes trap. After clearing the wall of buzzsaws, our 4 remaining players venture deeper into the barn. The buckets have been removed, but the chains are still around their necks, and they realize that the chains are attached to the ceiling now, and so they may be hanged. In front of them are 3 syringes seemingly filled with the same clear, nondescript liquid, and Jigsaw explains that one syringe is filled with the antidote to a poison that one of the players has been injected with, the other is filled with saline, and the third is filled with an acid that will cause an excruciatingly painful death. And later on, we come to find out that this acid is none other than hydrofluoric acid. And you know how I feel about hydrofluoric acid. Each syringe is labeled with a different series of numbers, and Jigsaw further explains that these numbers correspond with what a human life is worth. Here's where we get a flashback that shows one of our game players in her former life as a purse snatcher, and as she snatches a purse, the victim chases her down, suffers an asthma attack, and dies because her inhaler is in her purse. Well, the purse snatcher only walked away with $3.53, so when we cut back to the present, we clearly see one of the syringes labeled with the numbers 353, but for whatever reason, she pussyfoots around, does not want to inject it, and so as time ticks on, they begin to be raised into the air. Well, the dude who was holding all 3 syringes just jabs all 3 of them into the lady in order to save the remaining players' lives. And of course, the acid kills her. It seems like her brain kind of starts to melt. And later on, there's an autopsy scene, and it explains that the acid traveled from a vein down to her heart, where it corroded it. So let's break down this tomfoolery for a second. Injecting any of the 3 syringes would free the collars for all 4 people. But from the purse snatcher's perspective, she had a 25% chance to survive. She would either A, do nothing, and everyone would be hanged. B, inject the saline solution, and she would die from the poison. C, inject the acid and melt. Or D, inject the antidote and survive along with everybody else. So why the fuck would she choose to do absolutely nothing? Yes, 33% odds with the syringes is not great, but she chose the 100% chance of death option. That is crazy. Absolutely unhinged behavior, and crucially, wholly avoidable. One of the syringes was clearly labeled with the numbers 353. The other numbers were like 600,000 and like, 75,000. Something completely different. And if you know that you took $3.53 from this woman who died because of that, you know what a human life is worth. You know this game is for you. And yet still, with the answer staring her right in the face, she's like, nah, bro, I can't do it. We all gotta die. We all going out. Get the fuck out of here, lady. Like, Jigsaw gave her a dime that should have been an easy layup, and somehow she sent that shit flying into the crowd. LVP hands down. At number 6, we have the rooftop trap. This involved a dude running from the police, and he gets cornered on the roof of a building where he finds a remote trigger that's been stashed up there, and he tells the cops that he needs to see Detective Halloran in the next 17 minutes or else 5 people are going to die. Well, he presses the trigger and the cops shoot his hand off with one person shooting him in his chest. It's all just bait, just to kick off the barn trap for the other 5 people. Pretty mild overall. Comes in ahead of the other 2 because number 7 was completely avoidable, and number 8 also could have just been won with a simple finger prick. Meanwhile, this dude got his hand blown off and took a bullet to the chest, so that sucks a little bit more. Now getting into the top 5, at number 5, we have another tie, because these 2 traps are dependent on one another. So at number 5, we have the piano wire trap and the grain silo trap. Now with these traps, our 3 remaining barn players find themselves in the next section of the barn, and they're faced with multiple doors. But one of these doors is labeled with no exit in capital big red letters. But one of the dudes still approaches it and tries to break the lock, and the floorboards give way. Surprise, surprise. And his lower leg gets wrapped super tightly by piano wires that have been hidden under the steps. And he sees that there is a red handle there. Jigsaw ominously tells him that if you pull this handle, you will be set free. Well, while trying to find another way to exit, the other two get trapped in a grain silo in the room, and it starts to fill up, threatening to bury them alive. The only way they can get out is if the dude trapped in the piano wire pulls the lever and quote-unquote frees himself, and we all know what that means. Well, while the people are trapped in the grain silo, various instruments begin to start falling down as well, such as circular saws, sharp knives, like chef's knives, sewing needles, so they get like jabbed and stabbed and shit. But the dude does pull the lever, has his leg all sliced and diced, and then they get freed from the grain silo. Now, my first thought while watching this scene unfold was, as things like shovels and pitchforks fall down into the grain silo, why are these people not grabbing those items and using it to deflect the other falling objects? Why are you just willingly taking a chef's knife to your shoulder? I didn't understand that whatsoever. But of course, all of this could have been avoided completely if old dude had just looked at the letters in front of him that spelled out no exit and not gone that way. He would have kept his leg and nobody would have had to go into the grain silo and been trapped. The awareness of these people leaves a lot to be desired. At number 3, we have the laser cutter's trap. This is the trap where Logan finally reveals his true intentions. After luring Halloran to the barn, the two men find themselves face to face in a room with collars around their necks that have been fitted with laser cutters. They must confess to the reason they deserve to die, and by doing so, they'll give themselves a chance to live. Halloran volunteers to go first, but being the shiesty guy that he is, he presses the button on Logan's side, which causes Logan's device to activate, creating a cage around his head with these lasers. As he begins to rattle off some confessions, these are apparently insufficient, and so the lasers continue to move closer and closer to his head until eventually they appear to cut him, and blood starts spurting out, but his head is noticeably still in one piece when he falls to the ground, so that probably should have been the first indication to Halloran that something was awry here. As Halloran's lasers activate, he notices that they're damaging the ceiling above him, and he also notices that there's a lack of damage on the ceiling above Logan, and that's when it all dawns on him that this was a setup. Logan rises from the quote-unquote dead, gives his long-winded speech and spiel about how he's been working with Jigsaw, or Jigsaw inspired him and he's been trying to live up to his legacy, blah blah blah. And he reactivates Halloran's lasers, and his head gets sliced for real, and it peels apart like a banana. Halloran had absolutely no chance of surviving this trap. It was pure revenge. And Logan's villainous scheme was incredibly far-fetched, but more importantly, highly entertaining and highly diabolical. Logan proved that he studied at the school of Jigsaw, but nobody does diabolicality quite like the professor himself. At number 2, we have the shotgun trap. This trap was a masterclass in how misdirection and careful word choice can turn something that's very simple into something that's very diabolical. This was my favorite scene in the movie, and it's probably not a coincidence that it's also the only scene that Tobin Bell, the actor who plays Jigsaw, appears in. After an unsuccessful attempt to escape the barn, our final two game players find themselves in a room face to face with Jigsaw. Their ankles have been shackled, and there's a shotgun on a platform in between the two of them. Jigsaw starts giving his speech about how they have everything in life backwards, and then he holds up a shotgun shell saying that here is their key to freedom. He loads it into the gun and exits the room. One of the players thinks that she must kill the other dude in order to earn her freedom. So as she grabs the gun, points it at him, and squeezes the trigger, it backfires, killing her. At this point, our final game player, the one who had his leg cut off in the piano wire trap, crawls his way over to the gun, starts sifting through the wreckage, and he notices these colored pieces of metal. And the color of this metal corresponds to the padlock on his ankle as well as the now deceased other player's ankle. And that's when he realizes that these pieces of metal were the keys. Jigsaw had loaded the keys to undo their padlocks in the shotgun shell. Very simple, very effective. By telling them that they had everything in life backwards and that the shotgun shell was their key to freedom, Jigsaw, in his trademark cryptic way, was telling them how to win the game. All he had to do was take a second, think about things, and not make any rash decisions. But instead, the lady ended up taking shrapnel to the face, and the dude was left behind to just die in the room. Either he bled out or died of starvation. From a carnage and bodily harm perspective, this trap is a lot milder than most other traps in the Saw franchise. But blood and gore are not a prerequisite to something being diabolical. Sometimes less is more, and this is a perfect illustration of that, in my opinion. That being said, our number one trap does have a fair amount of blood and gore. So, the number one most diabolical trap in Jigsaw, the 8th film in the Saw series, is the tornado trap. So one of our barn players finds himself lassoed by the ankles and hoisted into the air, suspended upside down above a device that resembles the funnel of a tornado. And this funnel has been lined with razor-sharp metal. The back half of a motorcycle has been attached to the top of the funnel, and it's explained that this is the same motorcycle that our player sold Jigsaw's nephew. Despite knowing that it was faulty, the brakes did not work, and as soon as Jigsaw's nephew got on this bike, went for a spin, well, the brakes gave out and he got plastered by a semi-truck. Pretty awkward, and Jigsaw is understandably still a little bit raw about this. So, as the game starts, the bike engine starts up, and it causes the wheel to spin the funnel at a very high speed. The brake to stop it is at the bottom of the funnel. As this dude begins to be slowly lowered into the funnel, one of the other players tries to save him by climbing up to the top, throwing a piece of rebar in between the spokes of the motorcycle's wheel, which it does stop it momentarily, but unfortunately not permanently. And so as that rebar kicks out and the funnel starts spinning up again, old dude sways just a little bit too much and he makes contact with the funnel. And as that happens, he is peeled like a human potato. Just completely skinned. And it's fucking gross. Like, honestly, what the fuck? That is absolutely unhinged. If I had a choice between being skinned alive and almost anything else, I would choose almost anything else. I would rather take my 1 in 3 chances of injecting the hydrofluoric acid into my heart. I would rather have my leg sliced and diced by a piano wire. I would rather take shrapnel to the face from a backfired shotgun than being skinned alive. All of those other things are either dying instantaneously or relatively quickly, or, you're maimed. Yeah, that sucks and that hurts, but you're alive. I imagine it probably takes some time to die from a skinning, okay? Unless he just lucks out and, his femoral artery was nicked first or some shit like that, but holy shit, that is horrifying. But how does it compare to our 2-time winner, the hydrofluoric acid trap from Saw 6? Well, would I rather be skinned alive or melted alive from the inside out? Looks like I have a real Sophie's Choice on my hands here. That's like asking, would I rather eat a plate of raw, unfiltered cow shit or dog shit? Either way, it's shit. So I'll use collateral damage as the tiebreaker. In the tornado trap, there are witnesses. yes, but they're complete strangers. Dare I say they have no skin in the game. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Not only that, all those witnesses ended up dying anyway. But with the hydrofluoric acid trap, our boy William, he got disintegrated in front of his sister, as well as a teenage boy and that boy's mother. All three of those people have to live with the recollection that they witnessed a man melt in front of them. They saw it, they smelled it, they heard it, may have got some of him on their shoes, I don't know. It's a fucked up situation that they have to just try to power through and go through countless hours of therapy for, I'm sure. And because of that, I'm taking the hydrofluoric acid trap as the most diabolical trap through the first 8 films in the Saw series. It becomes our first trap to win 3 consecutive matchups, and it will continue on in the competition. But I am getting dangerously close to my time limit. Therefore, there will be no additional insight into the psychology of the characters from me this time. The program I use to export my episodes has a 30-minute time limit on videos unless I upgrade to the Pro version, which currently is priced at $119.99 per year. I will not be paying that. Next episode will break down the Saw spin-off Spiral, starring a pre-slapped Chris Rock. Once again, Happy New Year, and remember, always keep it spooky.